The following program is paid for by Kelsher Communications. Winston-Salem, a city built on tobacco, textiles, technology. Its citizens, ingenious, creative, hardworking. A key ingredient in the success of this city was the black population that provided a strong labor force for the factories, mills, and other support services.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the fourth and final show of our four-part series, The Rise to Prominence. These are conversational stories about the lives and careers of some of Winston-Salem's most prominent members of the African American community. I'm Margaret Johnson, here with J.P. Beatty, the producer. J.P., we often see news stories or interviews with notable individuals, but the stories featured in this Rise to Prominence piece are not interviews, but really conversations on which we get to see and hear some very personable stories as told by some of Winston-Salem's most distinguished leaders, and today's show certainly no exception.
It absolutely is not, Margaret. This is a great conversation that I had with Larry Little, Dr. Larry Little. Dr. Larry Little, life's journey is so amazing. He was a former leader of the Winston-Salem Black Panther Party. He became an attorney. He became a college professor. I mean, his list goes on and on and on. And to see where Larry started from as a child, the challenges, the disappointments, the hurts that he went through, but what he did to build this community and the service and the life and the things that he did to help this community, it's beyond words.
Yeah, you'll be mesmerized by this piece.
And as I said, it's beyond words, so I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to let Larry tell you his life story, and you'll be mesmerized.
But I was reared in the Kimberly Park Public Housing Projects on another Oak Street. And there we used to go back behind our house, that was Wilson Street Bottom. And we used to play on an old dirt field there, trying to play basketball. And I used to watch guys like Dickie Rohn and the Petersons, Willie Peterson, June Peterson, and we would all be playing basketball there. And so I developed that love of basketball. Then I'm in Paisley, and I have Doretha Black, I have Mr. Mooney, and then I have Victor Johnson, who's been like a godfather to me. One thing I tell this story about at Paisley, see, we had secondhand books, but they didn't care. You were going to learn. There was no such thing as you were not going to learn. They didn't care. I never forget Miss Black signed me a poem, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, A Psalm of Life. And my friends Zeke, Rabbit, and others, they were laughing. I think Zeke pulled it. His name was Sammy Archie. They said, man, we didn't learn that stuff. We're not going to learn those poems. I said, y'all not? You going to learn a weasel? I said, y'all not learn, I'm going to learn. So we get to class, call on Zeke, Sammy Archie, he recites his stuff. Then Rabbit recites his stuff, Robert Noble. I said, my homies done tricked me, and I'm up here. So she asked me to recite, and I'm mad. I'm not prepared. They had tricked me. And so I said, I ain't learned that punk stuff. That's what we call. She said, what? And so she said, you have a meeting with the Board of Education. So she reached in her drawer, pulled out this paddle with holes in it, like Swiss cheese. And she went to my behind, bam, bam, bam. And then she called my mother, and I got home. My mom said, go get some switches. And I got whipped again. And I'm mad at my homeboys because they done tricked me. But when I got back to class, the next time they called on me to recite, And I never forget, it said, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, A Psalm of Life. Tell me not in mournful numbers. Life is but an empty dream. For the soul is dead to slumbers and things are not what they seem. Life is real, life is earnest, but the grave is not its goal. Dust the hour to dust return was not spoken of the soul. Then in this world's broad field of battle, in the bivouac of life, be not like dumb, driven cattle. Be a hero in the strife. My ass was whipped so hard that I remember that 60 years later. I remember that. Because they insisted that you learn. And there was none of this mess.
Stay tuned, there's more to come.
A good community is essential to a good life, and M&F Bank has been your community bank for more than 100 years. Our focus is to provide capital for small and medium-sized businesses, and being a community bank, all banking decisions are made locally. Please visit our website to learn more at mfbonline.com or call us at 336-722-0200. M&F Bank, where relationship banking is our most important priority.
The main reason Larry transferred from his beloved Paisley High School to the predominantly white R.J. Reynolds High School was because he wanted to play basketball, and he felt that he would have a much better chance of making the team at Reynolds.
Now, by the time I go to Reynolds High School, I lost my focus that I had when I was at Paisley, and I just played basketball. I majored in basketball there. I failed classes, but they changed them so I could be out on the basketball court playing. They didn't tell me not to study, but they made it convenient. I did not take the advantage. But when I went to Reynolds High School, I saw they had language labs, stuff like that we never had at Paisley. But I was only interested in playing basketball. And I went there, and that's all I did. 50 years ago, about this time, I'm in the class day graduation at Reynolds High School. Mr. Deaton, the principal, came and said, "Bud, you can't graduate." I said, "What?" He said, "Your geometry didn't come through." I said, "Well, Mr. Deaton, you're going to get a change like you've been getting a change, aren't you?" He said, "There was nothing he could do." And I walked from Reynolds High School up Northwest Boulevard to my mother's house on Oak Street in the Kimberly Park Public Housing Projects. I was crying like a baby. And I went into a depression. And I did not talk or communicate for several weeks. My mother said it was best maybe that I go out of town. Everybody wanted to know where I was going to go to college and play college basketball. And I'll never forget my basketball coach at Reynolds High School, Howard Hurt. He said, "Larry Little, I'm going to make certain that you get into college playing basketball because you have a gift." And he said, "I never want to pick up my evening paper or watch the evening news and see where you'll follow behind people like Stokely Carmichael and Rap Brown." And I said to the coach, "I'm not worried about that black power stuff. I want green power. I'm going to move my mother out of the public housing projects. That's all I'm concerned." Lord and behold, 1 year later, I was a leader in the Black Panther Party.
The deep disappointment and hurt that Larry felt from not graduating with his class would lead him to a new venture, one that would change his life forever.
So my mother sent me to New York to stay with my sister. I never forget getting off the bus at Grand Central Station. And while I was there, my sister had a book, and it was called The Autobiography of Malcolm X. It was on her coffee table. And I picked that book up and started looking at it. Malcolm X was named Malcolm Little at birth. And later I'm realizing he's assassinated February 21st, which is my birthday. That book metamorphosed me. I began to read for the first time. I never read a full book at Reynolds High School. And I started reading. After I read that book and saw Malcolm had been a pimp, a hustler, gone to prison, and the book is so much better than the movie. Spike did a good job with the movie. Denzel plays well, but the book is much better. And I realized how he began to study the dictionary while he's in prison. And so I started studying the dictionary also. And then after I read Malcolm's autobiography, it was like pouring water on a dry sponge. And I began to read, and I began to study. Mr. Deaton, to his credit, arranged for me to take a correspondence course while I was in New York. And I completed my requirements to graduate and get a diploma, high school diploma from Reynolds High School.
After spending time in New York with his sister, Larry returned home to Winston-Salem with a new awareness of self and an awakened desire to bring social justice and equality to the black community.
Probably about Christmas time, I come back to Winston-Salem, and I'm working, I think, at Haynes Dine Finish from 11 o'clock at night, and doing the odds and ends. But I would go around to this bookstore. It was the Uhuru bookstore, and it was near Trade and Northwest Boulevard. At one point, you may recall, JP, where Andrew's beer and wine store was. Those buildings are still there. The guy set up a bookstore. His name was James Dixon. And I would go in there and I would be looking at the books. About a couple of them here that we couldn't afford to. But he always closed his bookstore up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I said, hey man, why are you closing so early? People who work, they want to come in the evening. He said, Brother Little, you can't make a living off selling black books. I make my living by working at McLean Trucking Company. So he said, I walk from here at 4 o'clock to get to my job at McLean Trucking Company, which is about a 3 or 4 mile walk. I said, well, look here, I'll keep the bookstore open from maybe 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock or so. He said, but Brother Little, I can't afford to pay you. I said, I'll tell you what, if you give me permission to read these books in this bookstore, that's all the pay I need. So as I'm reading that bookstore, I'm reading everything. I get exposed to Mao Zedong, who was the leader of the People's Republic of China. And the reason I mention that, because all the pamphlets, we call that the Little Red Book. It was like our Bible, we carried that. And something that happened to a black man on Derry Street. And the Panthers from Greensboro came and started speaking. And this brother named Eric Pasha Brown, he came to play basketball at A&T. He had played at Powell Memorial with then Lou Alcindor, now we know as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He had been around the Panthers in New York. So he came and spoke on Derry Street. And Terry McMillan, she was in that group, and she had on a fro, and they had on her black uniforms. They called her Lady Kenyatta. And this brother Pasha was speaking, and he quoted Mao Zedong, and Mao saying, if your enemies attack you, you prepare for battle. If you're not prepared for battle, run away. Live to fight another day. But he said, but if your enemy attack you and you're prepared for battle, then I started quoting it before the brother could get it out of his mouth. You respond to wipe your enemies out resolutely, thoroughly, wholly, and completely. Do not strike rashly, but when you do strike, you must win. And I finished the guy's speech, and so afterwards they came to me and said, hey brother, you know this stuff. I said, well, I work at the bookstore, black bookstore. They said, well, you want to just recite stuff, or you want to get down with the party? And I talked to Brother James Dixon. I said, what do you think about that? He said, Brother Little, the Panthers are serious, and I know you're serious. I think that'll be a good move for you. So they're going to have a meeting that Wednesday. I went. They said, come to our meeting. We have a political education class. And I went over there. It was apartments between 4th and, it had been 3rd and 4th Street where the apartments were. They're still up now, I believe. And they were going through the Panther paper. Well, I had already read the paper because we sold them out of our bookstore. And I was on top of stuff. And so I knew this was important to me. Now, my mother said, Larry, you're working from 11 o'clock at night at Haynes-Dine Finish. You're trying to go to school at Winston-Salem State, and you're trying to be in those Panthers. You're killing yourself. You're gonna have to let a couple of these things go. So I said, you're probably right, Mama. I'm gonna quit this job and I'm quitting college to be in the Panthers. Now my mother, who loved me so much, she said, Larry, that's not the decision I wanted you to make. She said, your decision to quit college and this job to be in the Panthers, this is gonna kill me. And she says, when I die, you come to my funeral, don't cry. Just say you killed your mother. I said, Mama, please. Please, I feel this is my calling, Mother. This is not your calling. I said, Mama, I gotta do it. And I made that decision. And she saw I made my decision. She loved the Panthers. She cooked for us all. She opened up her house. At one point, it was like a headquarters there. And I never forget Mr. David Tompkins. He was the head of the Kimberly Park Public Housing Projects. Lived not far from where you all grew up. The FBI came and said they're using Larry Little's mother's house as an office, and we want you to evict him. And Mr. Thompson told them, Ms. Little's breaking no laws. And he wouldn't do it.
You are watching the story of Dr. Larry Little right here on the Rise to Prominence, and there's more of this amazing story right after the break, so don't go away.
We can make that happen, definitely.
This looks great.
We'll bring it and have
Getting through the morning meeting in one piece?
Thanks.
Feels good. Then realizing it's payday. That definitely feels good. All while keeping the kids busy and the clients happy? You're unstoppable. With a Wells Fargo checking account, you can bank without missing a beat.
Looking for that special outfit for a special occasion or everyday wear? Then step into Kiona's Boutique and Hat Shop and step out in couture suits, dresses, designer hats, and accessories that accentuate how special you are. You see, at Kiona's Boutique and Hat Shop, we specialize in women's fashions that are legendary. So remember, for that special occasion or a classy look anytime, you can find the style that is just right for you. Kiona's Boutique and Hat Shop, 235 West 5th Street, Winston-Salem.
Because they fired me at Haynes-Dine Finish because they found out I was in the Panthers. Okay. They found me at Thomasville Furniture Company. They found out I was in the Panthers and wanted to be part of that. But they said, look, you can go to California and you can represent us. And we know you can stand whatever they put at you. So they chose me to go out. It was probably a turning point in my life. I get out there and I get to meet Bobby Seale, who's in jail. But probably but I met Fred Hampton. I know you've heard of Fred Hampton out of Chicago. He's the brother, they say, is one of the real political assassinations the government carried out. And Fred Hampton didn't drink, didn't smoke weed. The Panthers say you can smoke weed back in that time. But I watched Fred Hampton, and he wouldn't take a beer or anything. He's about 6'3", looked like he could have played middle linebacker for the Chicago Bears. He asked me where I was from. I told him I was from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. He said, comrade, we won't be able to organize in the South right now because racism is so strong down there. There's no distinction between the Klan and the police. They're the same. He said, brother, we have a base in Chicago. Now, only one Panther's been killed. He said, 50 Panthers will be killed in North Carolina before you get a base. He said, so the Panthers, we're on the West Coast, we're in the Midwest, we're going to be in the Northeast, and then we're going to get into the South. I said, well, comrade, if the Panther Party, if we're the vanguard of black people in the revolution, why are we going to come to the South last? He said, because it's going to be too tough to operate. I tell him this is the book that I gave you, you'll see. About 4 or 5 days later, I'm still at the national headquarters, and I get a call saying that Fred Hampton been murdered. And I'm standing guard at the national's office because in none of our office could we ever not leave somebody on duty because they were kicking in our doors. And they kicked in this door at 4 o'clock in the morning, December 4th, 1969, and murdered him. And the person called, Comrade Fred has been murdered. And I said, what? Brother, tell me, they've been murdered. I wake up this brother from the national headquarters. He was our captain named Brother Calvin from Des Moines, Iowa. I said, man, someone just called about 5 o'clock in the morning and said, Comrade Fred's been murdered. He said, Larry, that's probably a crank call. We had crank calls all the time. He said, look on that Rolodex. Young kids, they don't know what a Rolodex is. And you find the number to his apartment. Call his apartment. I called Fred Hampton's apartment. And you ought to see the documentary called The Assassination of Fred Hampton. Anyway, the person answered the phone. I said, must speak to Fred. The person said, just Fred. I said, damn, Fred, I heard you've been murdered. And he said, are y'all coming over? Just people hanging around. And I realized this is a white man trying to disguise his voice. And back during that time, you couldn't tell where the phone call was coming from. And I was calling from California, and he's trying to lure people to come to the office. And he said, y'all gonna come over here? I said, this is not Fred, this is a damn pig. And I hang up the phone, and I tell Brother Calvin, I said, Brother Calvin, a white man answered Fred's phone, trying to sound like he's black. Fred probably, it's probably true. And then we called our Chief of Staff, David Higgins, and realized that. I was telling this story to Bobby Seale and Bobby Rush, who's in the Congress now. And they said, you the one got the call? I said, I got that call that Fred Hampton had been murdered.
During his trip to California, Larry Little's dedication was quickly noticed by the national leaders of the Black Panthers Party, and they selected him to become the head of the Winston-Salem chapter.
But at any rate, when I went out there, I met Angela Davis, Huey Newton, the Panther leaders, Geronimo Pratt, Messiah Hewitt, Elaine Brown, Erica Huggins, Bobby Bowen. And it was something. I used to sell the Panther papers. Our headquarters was 3106 Shattuck Avenue in Berkeley, and I walked down to Oakland to sell papers, and I was selling back, coming back, working like mad. And they just saw me, they said, Comrade, you're very dedicated. And they put you through some other things that I won't talk about to see whether or not you got the heart to really be a Panther. And afterwards, I went to see Bobby Seale. He was at San Francisco County Jail, and talked to him and David, and they said, Comrade, we believe you all are ready to do something in Winston-Salem. And then they told me, you're going to be in charge there. I said, no, I'm just a lieutenant of information. We got a structure there. Robert Gears, I kept. He said, we don't know those people. And we've trained you. And we know you will go down with us. So you're going to be the leader. And those other people who have those jobs, they cannot be Panthers. Say, they're killing us. You see, they just killed Fred Hampton. They're killing us, and we're not going to work for the white man and try to be Panthers part-time. Tell those comrades they can work if they got to take care of their families, but they'll be community supporters, but they're not going to be in the leadership. And Lord, I didn't want to do that because I'm 19 years old. And these people have been in the military, gritting up 31 and stuff, and I came back and told that. It seemed like I was running a power play, but it was what the orders were. The Panthers made me read. When I got into California, they said, you know, you're smart. They say, this military stuff, look, we got gangsters. We got brothers like Geronimo. They come out of the military. They ready for that. We don't want you in that part of the party. We think you can be a good speaker for us, and you can do, and you got the information, you got the knowledge. And so I come back, and so we announced this change, and so some people couldn't handle it, and they quit. But I become the leader of the party, and we began to build it. And but they made me study sometimes on Sundays. We'd be in classes for 10 and 12 hours. Sometimes I would read, if I had a day off, they would have me reading sometimes 16 hours a day. So I went from flunking out of high school and been in the Panthers for 6 years. I went to jail and all that stuff. And then people couldn't understand how I was never known for my academics, how I could do these things at Winston-Salem State, UNCG, Wake Forest, is because the Panthers gave me that background. Paisley High School, foundation, correct grammar, no coulda did, shoulda went, none of that nonsense. They didn't play that subject-verb disagreement. And so then the Panthers got me to reading Mao Zedong, Che Guevara, Kwame Nkrumah, Nelson Mandela, Amilcar Cabral. I read this maniac over in North Korea, Kim Jong-un. I studied his grandfather, Kim Il-sung, What Is to Be Done. And that philosophy he developed called Juche, self-reliance, self-substance, and self-defense. So I studied all those folks in the Panthers, and we had to read Das Kapital. We read What Is to Be Done by Vladimir Lenin. All those things I had to read. Dialectical Materialism, Frantz Fanon's The Wretched of the Earth. All these books really let me know what was happening around the world and began to give me an international perspective. And so reading all that, by the time I leave the Panthers after about 6 years, I can finish Winston-Salem State. I finished in 2.5 years. I took 30 hours in some semesters. That was hard for me. I finished a master's program in public affairs at UNCG in 14 months. And I finished Wake Forest Law School in 2.5 years. I was the first African American win the highest competition at the law school, Stanley Moot Court competition. I won it my second year in law school. I beat all the second year law students and the third year law students my second year in law school because the Panthers gave me Paisley, Doretha Black, Victor Johnson teaching you vocabulary words, abash, abominate. I remember Victor throwing those words at us early on. And so I remember that. And then the Panthers had me to read all the intellectual stuff and the revolutionary materials from all over the world. And so that was it. The Panthers was a hard life, JP. We called it Juche. We had to get what we had to get. And sometimes we didn't have the money, but we went out and got it. And we had a breakfast program and things of this sort. We later realized, and you can go back and look at the FBI files, J. Edgar Hoover says, Larry Little is the most effective Panther in North Carolina. We must neutralize him. When you look at, when they use the term neutralize, it is often meant frame up charges or assassination. They use neutralize with Dr. King. And I'm reading these things, so they tried to stop our breakfast program. They say, stop the breakfast program, because that's endearing the Panthers to the black community, this breakfast program. So they would break in our offices, different places, destroy food we had for hungry kids. Just imagine, and the reason we did that because we knew our kids couldn't learn if they went to school hungry. So you talk about the Panthers, we started a breakfast program. So now all the public schools that have a breakfast program, they can thank the Black Panther Party because we started that.
What an incredible story. And we're not through yet. We'll continue right after the break.
A good community is essential to a good life, and M&F Bank has been your community bank for more than 100 years. Our focus is to provide capital for small and medium-sized businesses, and being a community bank, all banking decisions are made locally. Please visit our website to learn more at mfbonline.com or call us at 336-722-0200. M&F Bank, where relationship banking is our most important priority.
Under the new leadership of Larry Little, the Black Panthers' popularity began to grow and gain more support from the black community. However, it also attracted the attention of city officials, police, and others, who felt threatened by the social changes that were starting to take place, and they set out to stop it.
I'm in the Panthers, and we're putting up posters of black people, black women holding black babies. Black is beautiful. And I'm over on 14th and Jackson Avenue area, putting up these posters on the telephone poles. And the police car tearing them down. So I said, brothers and sisters, they don't want us putting up posters of black people saying black is beautiful. Now, some people may not understand the significance of that, but to call a black person black in those days was like using the N-word. So in 1968, when I get to New York, and they say KDIS, Frankie Crocker, the baddest DJ around, said, I got something from the Godfather of Soul. He said, up, with your bad self, say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. Black people need to hear that so badly. And so, all that sort of stuff. And so when I was so I got up on this car and started talking to black people. I said, if I were a white boy in Buena Vista, Sherwood Forest, putting this white up, nothing be said. But black people and black art, they're tearing it down. Next thing you know, the police rolled away. About 15 minutes later, it was getting dusk. They rolled up. This is September 1970. They ride up, turn their lights off, come up the wrong side of 14th Street, jump out the car. They pull out M1 carbines with banana clips, ride pump shotguns that they had. They say, now open your mouth again, we'll blow your damn brains out, your brains out. And I was arrested and charged with attempting to incite a riot. I go to court and the judge says, you've never been arrested before. And we're going to give you a chance not to go to jail. But you have to agree to get out of the Panthers and become gainfully employed. I said, if gainful employment is working for the Breakfast for School Children program, the pest control, free pest control programs we have, then that's the only work I'm going to do. He said, well, ordinarily, because you've never been arrested, we don't know what has happened to you. Last year, you were starred at Reynolds High School. Well, 2 years probably at that point. We're going to put you at 30 days hard labor in the Department of Corrections. If you don't agree to get out of the Panthers and become gainfully employed. I say, Judge, you got a right to be in the Republican Party. I got a right to be in the Black Panther Party. It's 30 days. I was in county jail for 1 day. They put me on a van. I was the only prisoner on the van. They took me to Salisbury. That was a felony lockup camp. They gave me 30 days. I'm in this felony lockup camp in Salisbury. And they stripped me and put me in isolation from all the other prisoners. I'm naked. I'm on this iron slab. That next morning, they send my grits in, and my little breakfast slider under the thing. And you could tell they had urinated in my grits, trying to make me think it was butter. So I was in Salisbury about 3 or 4 days. Then they moved me to Salisbury. And that's when they told my mother where I was being kept, because Attorney Westmoreland threatened to sue. And what happened is I'm visited by an FBI special agent named David Martin. And Martin comes and offers me a deal to become a FBI snitch or informant. And he said, look, you can make several $1,000s before the end of the year. All we need for you to do is give us this information, Panthers' names, where they live, that sort of stuff. He said, why are you the only Panther in jail? The other Panthers out, Cornell, Malloy, they ain't working for us. They making them a little money. I said, well, if they were working for you, you wouldn't have to ask me for this information, because they know what I know. So obviously you don't have shit. I said, so this thing is over with. And we're in the warden's office, and I get up to walk out. And the black guard, one try to push me down. And he gonna show out for the white folks on me. I grabbed an aluminum chair, and I went after that first. And I hit him. I did not win that fight with all those guards. They beat the hell out of me, stomped me all over. I was practically unconscious. But they never broke my spirit. But one of the most saddest days was my mother coming down to the prison to see me like that. Well, when they didn't break me there, after a few days there, they sent me to Camp 63, which is up here on Cherry Street Extension, the prison camp. I get up there and I see a couple of my homies, JP. I thought they were in Atlanta or New York. Them guys in jail up there, in prison up there. But after the next night, the next morning they wake you up at 5:30 and tell you what your crew assignment is to go work on the chain gang. then you get fed, and you go on out. So I think that's the order of things. But anyway, they called me out. Little, you're with group 5, y'all going out on the highway 65. And apparently they had people out there busting up on the chain gang, busting up these rocks. So they said, you with crew 5, you're on highway 65 to work. And I said, well, how much does this job pay? They said, what do you mean? Well, how much does it pay? I said, you talking about I'm going to work? I want to know what is the compensation going to be. They said, you're a prisoner. We don't pay. I said, but I'm not a slave. I said, I'm not going out there to work. So they try to tell the other prisoners to go out to work. I said, well, we're going to look to see what, Larry ain't going. We see what y'all going to do with him. And I make no move. Then they come and they tell me, pull me to the side, I said, look, you only have 30 days. You shouldn't have to do that kind of work out there. We're going to give you a good job. You just have a job. You stay on the camp, and you just pick up paper on the camp. That's much easier. That's what everybody wants to do. I say, well, I'll take that job, but how much you going to compensate me for picking up that paper? The next thing I know, they say, you're impossible. And none of the prisoners are going out to work. Then they come and tell me, pull me to the side, go outside, take this blanket and go lay down. You don't have to do any work. Just go out there and lay down with this blanket. This thing, we can't have this. I say, well, I'll go out there and lay down, but you still got to give me some compensation for moving. They thought I was crazy. Then they said, put him in the sick room. Let's tell everybody. They say, y'all putting Larry in the sick room, but he ain't sick. I get in the sick room. Only thing in the sick room, white boys. Black guys say they sick. They can't go to the sick room. All these white boys, they say, nah, he got, and I get up there and I see all these white boys, and I say, look here. You all exploited. Y'all don't have shit. You may be white, but the folk, you all in here for what, robbery? This, I say the real robbers are the Gettys, the DuPonts, the Rockefellers, the Howard Hughes. They're the ones running this country. Y'all don't have anything. Black people have nothing. You all have nothing. Y'all, they call y'all white trash. I say, but they have us fighting against each other. So the white boys are listening to me at this point. I never found out till years later. They called Raleigh. They say, nobody's working. And they listened to this boy who got 30 days, Larry Little. And they said, get him out that damn prison. And next thing I know, they call me, come to the sick room, get out. They say, grab my bag, a brown bag with a couple of things I had in it. They drive me down Cherry Street, down to where Bojangles is right there, Cherry, Marshall, and Northwest Boulevard. And they said, get the out this van. I said, but my time ain't up. They say, get the hell out of this damn van. I said, but my 30 days ain't up. They said, get this, and they pushed me out the damn van. I said, but I ain't done all my time. And I walked from Northwest Boulevard up to Kimberly Park Projects to where my mother was. And that was an important lesson because I tell my students this story because people who attempt to intimidate you often will put things on you they can't stand themselves. But when they are unable to intimidate you, you intimidate them by their inability to intimidate you. And so that's the first degree I tell my students I got within the School of Hard Knocks. They beat me, but they never broke my spirit. And so that is important experience in my life. And I had just seen Fred Hampton die and be murdered like that. At that point, the question for me was, Larry, they are killing Panthers. Are you really ready to die? And JP, I was prepared to die. I believe in it in all my heart and soul. You talk about my pouting on the basketball court after we lost. I gave everything I had. There were better basketball players than me, but I don't think you found anyone who out-hustled me on the basketball court. I would hustle like a dog. I'm in the stands. I was a madman. I would hustle and I would do all that. And I took that into the Panthers. And I would work hard like a dog. And so I got those experiences.
Well, this story gets deeper and deeper. We must take a quick break, but we'll continue with the story of Dr. Larry Little. when we come back.
Happen, definitely.
This looks great.
We'll bring it and have
Getting through the morning meeting in one piece?
Thanks.
Feels good. Then realizing it's payday. That definitely feels good. All while keeping the kids busy and the clients happy? You're unstoppable. With a Wells Fargo checking account, you can bank without missing a beat.
Despite prison sentences and harsh treatment, Larry Little continued to develop programs and services to help underserved black communities and individuals who were denied fair and equal treatment.
We started significant survival programs. We had not only the breakfast program, we had free pest control programs. At one point when you and I, JP, when we grew up in Winston-Salem, the funeral homes, the black funeral homes used to run the ambulance services. And the rationale, I understand, is that they felt if somebody died, you remember them as a funeral, so you get the body. But the funeral homes used to run the ambulance services. So in Winston-Salem, after the funeral homes got out of that business, the county took over that service. And what they were saying was black people were misusing the ambulance service. They would call the ambulance, and the ambulance attendants would get there and say, look, you're not in this kind of situation, but they would go anyway. So they changed and set up a policy, county commissioners, that if you call for an ambulance and the ambulance attendants got there and they determined you were not in an emergency kind of situation health-wise, then they were going to ask you to pay them the money up front or tell you to call a cab. And these emergency medical technicians who were not doctors diagnosed people as not being in bad situations and left them at home. And we had 2 people to die in this city, black people. That infuriated me, and I said, my God, these ambulance attendants are not equipped to make that kind of evaluation. And they left people home who died. And we said, this is crazy. And so I started thinking, and we strategized in the Panthers. We said, we ought to start our own free ambulance service. We got free pest control programs. We've been doing outreach testing for sickle cell anemia. The Black Panther Party did the first massive outreach testing for sickle cell anemia in this country. And we did that all over the country. And so we said, what about a free ambulance service? So we organized and had the Panther members to go to Forsyth Tech and also the Surrey Community College to become emergency medical technicians. I'm told later by the president of Surrey Community College that the FBI visited them and told them that it would be dangerous for the Panthers to have a free ambulance service. So to put us out of the program. And he said, well, they're not doing anything wrong. They come to class diligently. They are some of the best students we got. How else can I put them out? He said, well, you figure, and this president of Surrey Community College told me years later, he told me, I can't do that. And people don't realize, but just tell you another thing about the FBI. There is a case out of Little Washington, North Carolina. There's a black girl in jail for breaking and entering. Her name is Joanne Little. She's not related to me. But while she's in Little Washington, Beaufort County, a white jailer, Clarence Alligood, came to her jail cell, put an ice pick at her temple, and forced her to perform oral sex. While she was performing oral sex, he put the ice pick down. Put it down. She grabbed the ice pick and launched it into his chest. Killed him. She took his keys, let herself out. He was the only jailer there. She escaped. People hid her out. I had a former comrade, Russell McDonald, out of Lumberton. And they got in, and the girl was hiding in a liquor house. And the police came tearing up to look at the house. At one point, they sat on the bed. She was hiding in between those old-fashioned feather mattress beds. Got her out, brought her to Durham, North Carolina, apartments, and Jerry Paul, white attorney, and others, they got in and got the ambulance attendant's report. Ambulance attendant's report said when they got to the jail, Mr. Alligood's trousers were down at his ankles, and there was the presence of spermatozoa on his thighs. We said that supported Joanne Little was being raped. And the law allows a woman to use deadly force to prevent a rape. And so we said this is a case of self-defense. So we got the case moved out of Little Washington to Raleigh. And it was the biggest case in the nation and around the world, 1974. She was tried in Raleigh, 1975. I was the national coordinator. I was going to Chicago, Mississippi. I went all over organizing for her. And in 1975, a jury of 7 whites and 5 blacks found her not guilty by reason of self-defense. It was the first time in the history of America where a black woman had been found not guilty for killing a white man who had raped her.
Another case of injustice that put Larry Little in the national spotlight was the Darrell Hunt trial, a young Winston-Salem black man accused of killing a white woman.
The Darrell Hunt case happens almost 10 years later, and I know how to do mass organizing. Yeah, I'm at the Patterson Avenue YMCA playing basketball, and this kid got his hair rolled up and braids the whole summer, and I'm playing basketball. He's trying to play me and Sam Mitchell and them, and I'm killing those boys. I'm 35 and I still can play. I could dunk at 35, all that stuff. So, and Mo Lucas say, Larry, I'm gonna call the police because this child abuse, what you doing to these boys out here, down here, is child abuse. And so I was killing them down there. And then next thing I know, this kid, I'm reading the paper, this woman that getting killed, and they arrested Darrell. I said, my God, that kid never impressed me like that. When I go see him in jail, I said, did you have a Spider Design t-shirt? He said, yeah, Larry. He said, I had one. I said, well, they say it's a rather unique shirt, and that's what the selling was on. He said, but Larry, now she was killed August 10th. He was arrested on September 11th. So I'm going down to see him probably September 12th, 13th, or something like that. He said, but Larry, I just bought that shirt last week. I said, you sure? He said, yeah. Where'd you get it? At one point, they closed off Trade Street between 5th and 4th Street, and they had a pedestrian mall there. He showed me the store. I went to that store. I said, did you all have this shirt? He said, the police left here just a while ago. We checked our records. We got this shirt in this week, that week. And it wasn't in Winston-Salem. They think we're the only ones carrying that shirt in Winston-Salem. They checked their inventory in Charlotte, whatever have you. And so at that point, I said, wait a minute. They're taking an item of clothing they know he had and they're putting it into the thing. Because the shirt was not even in Winston-Salem on August 10th when this woman is murdered. So that set off alarm bells. And I checked on a couple other things. I said, oh my word, this is fishy. But Darrell was found guilty. And but the community was so pissed off. We had AAA radio station. We had many Irvin. She has an Irvin Beauty Salon right there on Patterson right there. We tried to show that a black guy can't go from has hair plaited to a jerry curl and all that, because one of the witnesses said he had his hair in a jerry curl like Michael Jackson. We said, no, the boy, that's just ridiculous. He had his hair plaited up. So many Irvin, we had her come to justify, you can't go from this hairstyle to no jerry curl. And all that stuff. Nothing made sense. We then found out that the main witness, Thomas Murphy, it was a preacher to the Ku Klux Klan. Darrell's arrested in 84. He's convicted in 85. I put this house up for $50,000 bond to get him released. But Maya Angelou was a good friend of mine. She said, Larry, we need to get national attention on this case. And she said, I'm talking with the National Council of Churches to stand this bond. you can put your house up maybe as collateral, but let's get it, because when we get the National Council of Churches involved, we can get this thing on a national level. And so we did that. And you'll hear about that in the vindicated part with BET that they came back later to do.
We have to take another short break. You're watching the life story of Dr. Larry Little, another fascinating conversation on the rise to prominence.
Happen, definitely.
This looks great.
We'll bring it and have
Getting through the morning meeting in one piece?
things.
Feels good. Then realizing it's payday. That definitely feels good. All while keeping the kids busy and the clients happy? You're unstoppable. With a Wells Fargo checking account, you can bank without missing a beat.
Larry's years of serving as the leader of the local Black Panthers Party had earned him the respect and trust of the black community. And his next move would take him from street confrontations with the police to becoming an elected city official who could change the laws that caused some of the problems of inequality in the black community.
At Miss Newell's 100th birthday celebration, City Council recognized her. We got elected at the same time, 1977. Virginia Newell and Vivian Burke, we were the first one, and we had to fight. No black had been promoted over a corporal in that police department till we got there in 1977. Remember O.D. Red's daddy, George Red, about the best policeman was that private. Joe McFadden. All them people stayed at the same level. And we said, this is crazy. No blacks worked in finance department because Joe Collette, the finance director for the city, said black people can be trusted to be around money. So Virginia Newell, myself, and Vivian, we raised holy hell. Even though it was only 3 of us, we would hold a news conference and say, not only the city manager, and Al, I think Al hadn't been, your brother hadn't been promoted to assistant city manager, but the police department was ridiculous. And at the time of the Darrell Hunt case, there's no black who was in the detective division, all white boys. And so Alexander Beatty helped to change a lot of that stuff. And people don't know that. On this Darrell Hunt case that I talked about, after he was convicted, I went and just talked to Al. I said, Al, this stuff is crazy. And the city manager, Bill Stewart and others said, look, let's reinvestigate this stuff. And Al looked at it and he gave him stuff, and it came out to show that this boy had been railroaded. And Al, in fact, came to court to testify up in Hickory, when we had a second trial up in Hickory. So I got on the city council. I knew that many of the streets in the black community, a lot of them were not paved. And I said, we should have a policy of eliminating every dirt street in this city. I did not argue it from a racial perspective. I said, if this is going to be a quality city, why are we still having dirt streets in our city? Pat Swan, the public works director, said, people know a lot of things about you, but they don't realize that you are the reason there are no dirt streets in Winston-Salem. And I pushed that, and it was just a simple thing. Another thing, we stopped this lady from being evicted by the police and sheriff. What they used to do, when people were going to be evicted, landlord would come and set their stuff out on the street. And oftentimes these people were going around trying to hustle up money, and people would just pillage through their stuff on the street. So we said, look, don't put people's stuff on the street. We changed the policy to say you can padlock it, but you're not going to put their stuff out on the street.
From growing up in public housing to becoming an effective leader of the Winston-Salem Black Panthers Party, a highly respected community activist, elected city official, attorney, and college professor, Dr. Larry Little's life is a remarkable example of the rise to prominence.
Today, I'm a licensed attorney, but I'm primarily a professor at Winston-Salem State University. My passion is teaching because I think I can inspire others to carry on this struggle, to speak not only truth to power, but to make a difference in our society. So that's it. You don't have a picture of it, but that picture right to your, look up that one right there. That's the picture I did this interview with C-SPAN a few months ago, and I said, that's the picture that inspires me. There's a picture of a black man being held by Christ, and they're saying, you worked long and hard, brother, you're tired. I'm gonna pick you and hold you in the palm of my hands. Now you can rest. I've always loved that picture because I think it just inspires me that perhaps I've made some kind of difference for my people, and I will be rewarded by the Creator. Okay.
I don't know about you, but my heart is still racing. That was so much power in that story with Larry Little, his life journey. It's just truly just one of strength and determination, and it proves that you can overcome anything if you just stay focused.
Absolutely, Margaret. You know, I want to just thank Larry Little. I have so much respect for him and for what he has done to better the lives of so many people in the city of Winston-Salem and in the community as a whole. And he's just awesome, awesome guy.
Yeah, pretty awesome. I don't even know any other words to say about that other than awesome. And you're amazing too, and thank you for all of that you did to bring this all together. That's a lot of hard work.
Well, Margaret, you know, I mentor young kids wanting to learn video production, and I always tell them, find your passion. Because if you find your passion, you may be working like crazy, but you won't be saying, I hate this job, you know? And so to me, of course, with the help of you and other folks, we pull this together. It's a lot of work, but I've never sat and said, I hate doing what I do, because I love it. So I just want to thank you and some other amazing people that chipped in with me. I want to thank Ms. Cheryl Harry with Triad Cultural Arts for partnering with Kelser Communications to put this together. I want to thank my good buddy and friend, Billy Rich, who's an associate producer, and also camera operator and my go-to guy. I want to thank
your everything?
Your everything. I want to thank Mr. Rudy Anderson, my other associate producer. And Margaret, I want to thank you for being the best host that I could have ever asked for.
You're much too kind. I don't deserve all that, but thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us and for watching Rise to Prominence. That's going to do it for us. I'm Margaret Johnson with J.P. Beatty. We'll see you next time.
The preceding program was paid for by Kelser Communications.